What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Cervantes podcast. Joining me today to discuss all things surfing is amateur surfer, YouTuber, and video and television and film major studying at Hofstra University, Dylan Black. What's up, Dylan? How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So, to give some background for everyone, the earliest evidence of surfing history can be traced back to 12th century Polynesia. Cave paintings have been found which clearly illustrate ancient versions of surfing, along with many other aspects of their culture. The Polynesians brought surfing to Hawaii, and it became popular from there. My first question I had for Dylan was, who introduced you to surfing, and how old were you when you first started?
So I wish I had like a really cool answer to this, but it's honestly pretty simple. My dad is a surfer. He surfed pretty much his entire life and he grew up doing it. And I feel like that's one of the biggest ways to get involved in the sport and in the activity is when you have like family members or friends who sort of get you into it. So I always hear from my parents about how the day I came from home from the hospital after I was born, my dad took me and put my feet in the ocean. Um,
Wow.
so he definitely wanted a surfer as a kid. And he would bring me out as a kid and push me into waves and really tried to encourage me to do it. And I'm sad to say I didn't really take on to it until like eighth grade when my friends started doing it. It was a little bit later in life that I really got
Okay,
into it, but it was about eighth grade, yeah.
eighth grade, and we're like 13 towards that age. Is that late for a surfer?
I don't think it's necessarily late. I think it depends on how you look at it. I think if you're
Okay,
looking at like pro people and like really, really good surfers, it's definitely kind of late.
okay.
But for people like me, the average surfer, I think it's probably right on the money of when people would start.
Did you ever want to become pro, or were you
I
like not thinking of that ever?
I definitely had a time that I did think it would be really cool because I think everyone's a little bit competitive in some way or
Right.
another. But for me, like I'm not a big sports person, and part of the reason for that is I don't love although I like competition, I don't always love competing against other people in that sort of nature. So I don't think competing would have been a right fit for me, and I'm sort of glad I didn't go down that route because sometimes it could take you out of like the fun of it.
How long do you typically surf for, like on any given day?
Yeah, it really can range. When I was like first getting into it, with my friend, in the summer, we would surf for like 6 hours a day.
Wow. Okay.
It was like ridiculous. We would go in for like 3 hours, then we'd come out, have some lunch, and go back in for another 3 hours. That's
Wow.
not really the case anymore. It's
Okay.
sort of it's sort of just too much to do. I would say now in like a good day when it's nice and warm, we could maybe be in like 2 hours.
Okay.
And then if
Now
it's
that
like
it's
sort of
winter, or now that like school started, you think?
so that's what I was gonna say too. It's like since we live on Long Island, and we have such drastic like seasonal changes, it like really alters how we surf. So in the winter, it definitely goes from like maybe 2 hours down to like 20 minutes in the water. Um,
Wow. Okay.
because even with equipment on, like wetsuits and stuff, you have to sort of be careful that you're not gonna get like frostbite or hypothermia or anything like that. So, and I'm a little like I'm not the strongest person to be in the cold. I just don't like the cold. I want to
Okay.
get out of there. Um, so I
Okay.
would say I would say in the winter, like maybe anywhere to like 20 to 30 minutes. In the summer, it could be like 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, because you got to be careful. You got to be careful, and you also don't want to get like, are the waves like rougher? You would say like during the colder like weather months.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting, and this is as far as I know, it's like this in most places in the world. In the fall and winter, you tend to get better and bigger waves, because that's I guess when
Okay.
more storms start to come in, like hurricane season, and like anywhere from like the end of August through maybe like October. That's when we get a
Okay.
lot of our hurricanes, and it brings in a lot of waves. So it kind of sucks because here it is so cold, and that is when we get the best waves.
How
So
many
it's
surfboards have you had, and how many do you have now? I see one in
uh
the back.
Yeah, so I have one over here. I have one hanging on the wall above me right now. I have a good amount. So I have a
Okay.
couple from my dad, which are much older, like that board and the one above me, that I
Okay.
sort of quote unquote retired.
Okay.
I don't want to use them. I don't want to fully destroy them or break them or anything. In terms of boards that I like actively use, I think I have two foam boards, which are great for learning,
Okay.
two like fun size length boards, which are like anywhere from like 7.2 to 7.8, 7.8. being 7'8", that
Okay.
sort of length. And then I have a short board, which is about my height, 5'10". And then I have a long board, which is about probably 9 feet.
So the shorter, why are they different sizes?
So it's really comes down to like ability and also just stylistic choice. Because once you start getting better at surfing, and I should preface too, I'm by no, I mean you said it, like I'm an amateur. I'm by no means crazy at surfing. I just enjoy it. I think I'm competent at it. But yeah, I just want to put a little disclaimer. But
Right.
yeah, it's once you start getting better at surfing, it really becomes a lot about style too. When you're on a shorter board, you can do a lot more like dynamic movements, like sharp cuts and turns. A lot of people use short boards on bigger waves because you can duck dive under them. You can actually push it under the water. In
Okay.
terms of longboards, I feel like that's more of like a retro thing, but a lot of people still do it. It makes it much easier to catch waves. It's much easier to ride smaller waves on it. And it's a lot more
Okay.
about kind of just cruising, it's not as flashy.
Okay. Okay. I always wonder, like, why are there different ones? Because I know there are some for learning, and then there's
Yeah.
some that's more like professional that maybe like someone that's really good would use, or maybe you would use, as opposed to
Yeah.
me just learning, just
As
starting
a
out. So
learner, yeah, as a learner, you definitely want a bigger board because it's going to help you float better. And
okay.
it's all about flotation. If you're sinking when you're trying to learn on your board, it's going to be very tough.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm learning, I should have I forgot the name of it, but when you like lock your feet to the board and there's like a cord.
Oh yes, the leash. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I recommend people of any skill level definitely use a leash. A lot of places that have lifeguards stationed at the beach will make you wear a leash.
Okay.
Because one thing a lot of people don't think of is not only does it keep you connected to your board just so you don't have to swim after it, but if you don't have a leash on and the wave pushes your board away from you, it could actually hit other people. So it becomes a bit of a safety
Oh.
hazard. So you want to always have it on you. And then plus, if you ever get knocked off a wave or something and you are in bigger conditions, you want to have that leash connected so you can always get to your board. You can pull your leash to bring your board closer to you. So it's a safety measure for you too.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's important.
Very important. Yeah.
That's important, yeah, for anyone. Yeah, that's so
And
true.
it's always scary because sometimes if you have an older leash or something like that, there is a risk of it breaking. They're very durable, but a lot of guys who surf on like huge waves, that's can be a risk. I've only had it happen to me one time, luckily on a small day, so I
Okay.
had to like swim back into the beach, but it can be
Damn.
scary.
Can you have the same maybe like two surfboards for like your whole life? Or should you constantly like maybe get new ones? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm in sort of a dilemma actually about that exact thing right now. So
Okay.
the board that I really started with was this 7'2" board that it was nothing crazy. It was sort of like just a mass produced board. It was
Okay.
about $300, so which is actually on the cheaper end of surfboards.
Okay.
But that thing has lasted me since 8th grade. I'm a junior now in college, so it's lasted me
Wow.
quite a bit of time. The thing with surfboards is they are very fragile because they're made of like resin.
Okay.
So they get dinged up a lot, they can get cracked, broken, and you have to get them repaired. Otherwise, they get waterlogged and they won't like perform right. So I've
Okay.
spent a lot of money on repairs for boards, but as long as you're careful, you keep repairing them and stuff, they can last you a bit of time. And
Okay.
then in terms of like whether or not it's good to keep getting new boards, I think it can be. I'm sort of looking maybe now to get a new short board, but they are so expensive. To get a
Yeah,
new
I didn't
short
know
board
that.
is
I didn't know that. Yeah.
it's insane.
It makes
It's
sense though,
crazy.
because you don't want something like cheap like
Exactly.
holding you in the water. So that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's
That makes
definitely an
sense.
investment. Like getting a new short board would probably cost like anywhere from like $600 to $800.
Wow.
And then you
Okay.
buy it and you run the risk of it breaking or cracking or having to repair it. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Which beaches on Long Island do you surf at?
So I surf predominantly at Long Beach, on Long
Okay.
Island. That's pretty much the main one I've surfed at, and there's a bunch of different streets and blocks that you could surf at there. I also surf at a beach called Lido Beach a lot, which is right next to Long Beach, and those are the
Okay.
two places I've mainly surfed at on Long Island. And it's really crazy. I don't know if at any point in this you want to go into sort of the surf culture, but I do kind of want to mention it is a thing with like surfing where people don't want you to like blow up the spot, meaning they don't want you to talk about where you surf because they don't want other people to show up and take their waves.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
it's crazy. There's a whole localism type of thing, but for me personally, I think people have the right to surf wherever as long as they're respectful. So I have no problem like telling
Right.
people where I surf.
It's not like and maybe I could be wrong with this, but it's not like a skate park where I feel like it's packed, you
It
know?
definitely can be. I mean, if you go out on a good day in the summer, there could be hundreds of people in the water.
Wow.
And people tend to not like that. And obviously, it's annoying when it's crowded, but I don't know. I really just believe anyone can go in the ocean, surf the waves. Everyone has a right to try it out. So,
Yeah, it's not that serious.
no,
It's my
exactly,
water, not yours.
exactly. And that's what happens, man. It's insane.
That's
But
so interesting. That's so interesting. I
yeah,
didn't know that. Many surfers claim to have a spiritual connection with the ocean, describing surfing, the surfing experience, both in and out of the water, as a type of spiritual experience or religion. Do you feel like you have a spiritual or emotional connection to the sport?
I definitely think I do. I'm not very religious in terms of like actual religions. Um,
Okay.
and as stupid or as goofy as it might sound, surfing is sort of like the closest thing I have to that, I feel like. And
Okay.
it's really hard to explain why unless you've experienced it yourself. There's just something about like standing up on a wave and catching a wave for the first time that you just get this feeling that you can't experience with anything else. I mean, I guess you could say like the equivalent would be like if you're a football player, maybe getting a touchdown or something along those lines. But for me, it's like when you're on that wave, you are wholeheartedly a part of the earth and nature and the ocean, and you just get this sense of peace that's really remarkable.
I love that. No, I love that. I've been watching like to prepare for this episode, I've been watching like a lot of like, YouTube videos of like different
Yeah,
surfers talking, and like they all say the same thing. You know, like
it's
they love it. It feels like yeah, it feels like a spiritual like thing. And some people I think it's cultural, like maybe for like
yep,
Hawaiians or maybe like Polynesian people. And I think for
yep.
other people, it's just like it's like that same feeling, but maybe not as religious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's definitely like in places like Hawaii, there's definitely like you said, like strong cultural roots to it. And I don't
Right.
necessarily have that. But yeah, it's just something about it. The emotions it invokes are really remarkable because like there's a lot of fear associated with it, a lot of nerves, depending on, how dangerous the water might be that day. There's a lot of just excitement in general. It gets the adrenaline pumping, which is really great. And people like me, I do like adrenaline in terms of that sort of stuff. But at the end
Right.
of the day, it all boils down to it. Like the peace and tranquility that you feel it can't be beat. So
Right.
I
And
always recommend people try it.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm not surprised because I love to go to the beach for those same reasons, like
Yep.
peace, like just like relax. So I'm sure you get that even more by surfing, because that's like
Yeah.
a different, it's like a sport, but it's also like you're not playing competitively, you're doing it for fun. So like that's cool too. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I love surfing too because it's like you're saying, it's partially competitive. Even if you're not even including like competitions and stuff, it's partially competitive just with yourself, which is one of the reasons I love it as an activity, is because I like to sort of challenge myself. I don't get too interested in competing with other people. So it's all a matter of, oh, I messed up this last wave, but I want to get this next one better, which
Right.
is a key factor in bringing me back.
In your most recent video on your YouTube channel, you spoke about getting injured and surfing post injury. How has that been? I know you told me a little bit about that,
Yeah.
but for the audience, how has that been?
So it's been, in all honesty, kind of rough. I'm not majorly injured or anything like that, which I'm really lucky. But it is important to note that as fun as surfing is, you can get injured during it. When I was first learning, my board hit me in the head, and I had to get stitches from it. Um,
Wow.
so there's
Okay.
there's a lot of people who do get injured, so you always got to be careful. Recently, this past August, I was surfing on a small day. I would have never expected this to happen. And I did what we would call like a floater, which is basically where you cruise up to the top of the wave and sort of float up at the top before coming back down. And I just
Oh.
fell and just smacked the water. Must have been at the wrong angle. And I just felt this pop or crack in my rib. And
Ooh,
I
damn.
immediately tried to get into the beach, and it was rough. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I broke my rib or something. So I went to the hospital, and luckily they said I didn't. They said, you'll be better in 1 to 2 weeks. And here I was like multiple months later, and it was still not feeling too great. I went to the
Yeah.
doctor, and he sort of thought that maybe instead of breaking the rib, maybe I broke some like cartilage in there or something.
Okay.
And the way it healed, I guess, is instead of healing like kind of flush, it healed like this. So now I have this bump on my rib, which is not ideal for laying on my board.
Yeah. It's gonna cause some uncomfortability.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the perfect word to describe it. Is it's not like painful anymore, but there is a level of discomfort that I'm trying to slowly get used to. But
Okay.
more so than the physical, I sort of have a bit of a mental block where I don't know if it's some fear, anxiety to get back out. It's preventing me. On top of then the cold, it's freezing here on Long Island.
Right. It's
So
December. Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to get over this sort of hump that I'm facing. Because last winter I surfed every day of December. Like nothing was stopping me. I was super motivated, and I'm trying to get back into that mindset now.
Yeah. Cause that's your passion. Even though it's not
Yeah.
like your career, it's still like a passionate hobby that you have that you've done for so long. And it's kind of, I'm sure maybe I don't want to speak for you, but is that like your outlet? So it's like you want
Oh,
to keep doing
yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
the perfect way to describe it. It's definitely my outlet. And like you said, it's not necessarily something I want to pursue as a career, but I feel just as driven to pursue surfing as I do anything else in my life. And I've been
And for
telling
you to
people that
stop doing that, it's like
exactly.
it's
I've been telling
weird.
people lately, it's like I'm a surfer who's not surfing, and it doesn't feel right.
Right.
Um, so I'm
Right.
trying to get back into it. I might potentially challenge myself to surf every day of January just to force me back into it.
Oh,
Um,
okay, like a
but
challenge maybe.
yeah, like some sort of challenge just for myself. So I'm contemplating doing that.
That's cool. And you'll have more time. Now that we're like on break, you'll have like
Yeah,
more time and like less work to do, less distraction. So
yeah, it's really the perfect time to try to do it.
yeah, I agree. Are you gonna more about your YouTube channel? I
Yeah,
love your vlogs. I was like binge watching them. Are you
thank you.
going to are you thinking about new ways like to produce content? Have you been like having trouble with that?
That is something I've always struggled with. I've been a YouTube fanatic since probably like sixth grade.
Okay,
Whether it
same.
be lifestyle content, gaming content, whatever, I've loved YouTube. So finally starting a channel was like so exciting for me. But I am at a point now where I do recognize that I need to make my content more entertaining to people that aren't just me. Um, because
Okay,
the way I've looked at it making videos is not so much for entertaining other people, more so it's just a log for myself that I could look back on.
I like that.
Um, which is great. And I do love all my videos, but I'm at a point now where I don't want to just, take my GoPro, go in the water, edit the clips, and then post it. I want to make like more highly produced content, and I don't know how to go about it yet.
Okay, yeah, I get that. I like even with this I get that with this podcast. Like people like were asking me like when I came back to school in the fall, like, "Oh, are you going to do your podcast in person?" And I was like, "Oh, like I haven't thought about that, but like maybe I should." Or like trying to make it more visually pleasing. So I've been talking to like
Yeah.
Nathan about like, adding graphics and stuff like that. So, yeah, you definitely want to switch it up where like this is a topic like most of my topics so far have been like black centered, but I was like I always thought surfing was cool, so like let me have Dylan on, so
Yeah.
I like to I like to diversify stuff to keep things interesting, for my audience and for myself, because I think if you do the same thing over and over again, at some point it might, get tiring for you and your audience. So I get
Yeah,
that.
it's exactly how I feel, and it does get tiring for me as well, doing the same thing like you said. And then there's also this like weird fine line where it's like I don't want the like making of the videos to overtake the meaning behind them. Like and by that I mean like I don't want to, let's say I'm going surfing and I want to make a surfing video. I want
Okay.
to make it more highly produced, but I don't want to give up time in the water to be like, let me get this shot, let me get this angle, like I still want
Yeah.
it to be about surfing and about me having fun. And I think part of the trouble is you do this podcast by yourself, right? There's not many other people like helping you out produce it, or are
Right.
there?
Yeah. It's just me.
It's very hard doing stuff by yourself. Especially like if
Yes.
I'm vlogging and I want to be in the content, it's very difficult if you don't have a filmer to film you, because then
Yes.
my range of shots is whatever I can basically hold in my hand, for example.
Right. You don't
So
have like a camera guy.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's partially an excuse because then you have YouTubers like, let's say, Casey Neistat or something, or some vlogger that is just ridiculous.
Oh, and he does it
Um,
himself.
yeah, and people that do it themselves, they do fantastic things. But for me, it's like I had a little bit of help with my brother and some friends who did filming stuff for me, and it makes such a difference. So I would love to get more into like that, where I have other people helping me out making stuff.
Are they surfers too, so that they could
So
get like more in the water as well?
yeah, so I have one really good friend that I might mention further in this podcast. I don't know. His name is Ethan Silver, and he's the one that really got me into surfing, and he has a YouTube channel as well. So we sort of help each other film sometimes, and if we're in the water and we each have our GoPro, maybe one of us films the other on a wave. My brother normally he doesn't like it. I'll force him to stand on the beach sometimes and get videos.
That's funny.
But yeah, it just I don't know. I mean, being the majors that we're in, communication media majors, it's like I love filming stuff. I love having stuff on video. So
Right, and
it's
you're trying to do like both of your two loves at the same time.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
surfing and like production and like cinematography and all that stuff. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's tough to
it's
find a
hard.
balance, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll find like maybe you'll do like a surfing podcast, or you'll
I mean,
have
that would be
like
sick.
you could like do different stuff like that, or yeah, I'm sure you're pretty creative, so I'm sure you'll like come up with something. But it's definitely
Thank you.
it's not easy being a content creator, especially in this
No,
day and age, because it's like it's so like you want to be consistent and you got to like weekly or like bi-weekly, so it's kind of hard to like keep things original, but also keep giving them content. So there's Duke Kahanamoku, Nick Gabaldon, Bethany Hamilton, Kelly Slater, and the list goes on. Which surfer or surfers are you inspired by?
there's definitely a few of them. Kelly Slater and Bethany Hamilton are like just crazy human beings. Like even taking surfing out of it, they're just insane. Kelly Slater, like technically, is just people consider him to be like the best surfer ever. What he pulls off is ridiculous. Um, Bethany Hamilton, I was introduced to her. I think like most of us were in the movie Soul Surfer when that came out,
Right,
and I
yeah.
mean to like to experience what she experienced and then like get back in the water, that
And
alone is
become
ridiculous.
that part and become such a good surfer and like
Yeah,
kill it. Like
it's
that's
mind blowing
yeah.
because I the way I see it, if that happened to me, in all honesty, I probably would never get in the water again, and I don't think most people would. So,
No.
like you
That's
said, to
yeah.
like you said, to do that and then on top of that become one of the best surfers in the world is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's very inspiring because it's like, damn, what's my excuse? Like,
Yeah,
just
I
try.
know. Some people are just built different. They
But I
really
think
are.
there's that too. I think there's that too because I'm pretty sure like I could try, but like we're all like she's done that since she was like 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. What
And
so you said Kelly, okay, Kelly Slater is. I was gonna ask you, is he the greatest? Is he like the Michael Jordan? You would say maybe.
so in terms of all the surfers, there's so many great ones. And because I don't follow pro surfing all that closely, I don't watch many competitions. I might watch some highlights here and there. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, Kelly Slater, a lot of people I think do consider him to be the best. And just to give you and the people that watch your podcast, like just a quick little like synopsis of who he is. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Okay.
And he gave this story about this time he was surfing. I don't remember exactly where it was. And his board hit him in the foot or something. And his foot literally snapped in half, like broke his whole foot practically clean in half. Um, and he described how he was sitting on the beach with his broken foot watching everyone else surf. And he said the pain of watching other people surf when he couldn't was worse than the pain he felt in his foot.
Wow.
So like that just gives
Wow.
you a little insight into who he is. So I just from that alone, I would consider him to be one of the best. Um, he's an absolute animal. There are other people too. I watch Koa Rothman and Jamie O'Brien. They're
Okay.
two Hawaiian pipeline surfers who are big into making YouTube videos. So
Okay.
they've been very motivational to me. And then one movie that I would also recommend to anyone is this movie called Chasing Mavericks.
Chasing
Um,
Mavericks. Okay.
yeah, Mavericks is this wave in California that is absolutely massive. It gets up to about, I think, 50 feet there, which is really,
Wow.
really big. And it's basically the story of this kid who's 16 years old, training to surf that wave. And the story is
Wow.
super motivational, and he basically just lives life to the absolute fullest. And sadly, he's passed away he passed away when he's very young, doing some water
Wow.
sport activities. But there's this saying called the surfer's name is Jay Moriarty. I don't think I mentioned that.
Okay.
Um, but there's a phrase that people say, live like Jay. And basically it just means live to the fullest, do what you love, and basically don't even think about it. And that's been a huge inspiration to me.
I love
Awesome.
that. If you could surf anywhere in the world, where would you surf?
I think it's gonna sound obvious, but I would definitely say Hawaii.
Okay, I
Um,
thought you were gonna say California. Okay.
California would probably be the first step for me.
Okay.
Because I mean, both places are pretty crazy and can get pretty nuts. And they're both like world renowned in terms of surfing. But like you said, Hawaii is like really like it just really I feel like the cultural foundation of where surfing like where it spread from, and the culture they have for it there is really remarkable. And they have a lot of the most famous waves in the world, right on their coasts, which is really really cool.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
you
know
have
if
like
you've
8 beautiful islands to choose
Oh
from.
yeah, it's really really nice.
Yeah.
The North Shore of Oahu is the most famous. They have this
Okay.
wave there called Pipeline. I actually have posters of it right here.
Oh wow, okay. Those
Yeah,
two
and
blue
it's
ones.
yeah, these two blue ones right here are Pipeline. It's one of the most famous and deadly waves in the world.
Wow.
But just
Wow.
the way it barrels, the rides people get is remarkable. And basically, my plan is to go and surf this wave when it's like flat. I want to go
Okay.
when it's like 1 foot, maybe in the summers when it gets more flat, just surf it and just say I surf Pipeline. And I'll just
Okay,
lie and say
yeah.
it looked like that.
And like check it off your bucket list.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's the
get
dream.
that. I get that. Why are certain waves different? Is it because like the position of it on the globe and like tectonic plates and all that stuff? Is that why you think that certain waves are more dangerous than others?
It's a lot of different factors, and I don't know like all the science behind it. It
Okay.
definitely has to do, I think, partially with like just currents and natural swells that build up in the ocean in certain areas. But I know, and that might not be exactly correct. I think that's sort of the rough idea. But a
Okay.
big thing too is just the ocean floor of where you're surfing. So
Okay.
here, when we surf, it tends to get pretty deep. Um,
Okay.
and the floor is all sand. It's more malleable.
Okay.
Whereas when you go to places like Hawaii or Pipeline, you have like stern reef that the waves are over, and it's a lot more shallow. So what happens is you'll come from an area of deeper water and it'll push in, and then it'll hit this like cliff face basically that's very shallow, and you have all this water forming then over that much more shallow area. So
Okay. Okay.
essentially it's more water over a like smaller surface area. Um,
Okay. And that creates like
the
the bigger
bigger
that you won't
waves,
get here in New York.
yeah, I mean we get pretty decent sized waves, but we get nothing like of that magnitude here. And again,
Okay.
there's a lot of different factors. I'm not like a scientist. That's
Okay.
sort of my just general understanding of it. And then in terms of what makes it dangerous, it just like I said, the amount of water, it's much more likely to drown in those situations. When it's bigger like
Okay.
that, the impact of just hitting the water hitting you is pretty significant.
Wow.
And one of the biggest threats, which I've barely done, is surfing over reef. You're hitting like because it's so shallow, it's pretty common to hit the reef, which is jagged and hard, and
Oh,
you can
and
get
like
infected from it.
corals. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are rocks.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like here where if you hit the bottom, you're hitting sand. It's a different ball game.
Okay, that's interesting. No, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And yeah, when you like, I went to the Puerto Rico and Jamaica this
Mm.
past year, and it's so interesting because when you go to the beach, you can go so far out, and you still
Yeah.
like it'll still only hit maybe your knees,
It's much
whereas
shallower.
here you go out and it's like you're already it's already at your
Yeah.
neck. So
Yeah.
that and right, like you said, like the coral reef, it's a lot of it's a lot of like rocks and all those shells and all that stuff. Whereas here, it's like mostly sand and like seaweed and like garbage.
Yeah, yeah, and garbage. Yeah. I do
But
have to
yeah,
say too, my grandparents have a house in Puerto Rico, so I'm like lucky enough to be able to go there sometimes.
nice.
And I
Okay,
did surf there one time, and
how was that?
I don't want to give the wrong idea. It's not like I was surfing crazy waves because they do
Okay,
get crazy waves in Puerto Rico. I was surfing very small, maybe like 1 to 2 foot waves, but it was
okay,
over a reef. The water was crystal clear. The weather was like incredible. It
I
was just
love
the
that.
feeling was insane.
I love what town or city were you in?
So they live in I think it's pronounced Rincon. It's Rincon or
Okay.
Rincon, Puerto Rico. And then I don't know the exact beach that I surfed at. It was probably about half an hour, 40 minutes away from there. But
Okay.
it was relatively close to Rincon, Puerto Rico.
Okay. No, I love that. I love that. There's I've only been to like certain parts. So I definitely want to explore the whole island because I think my grandma said you could in like a day, like go everywhere. But I love the
Yeah,
water. It's so blue and like
it's
we don't
amazing.
get that up here.
We don't. It's just dirty. The sand is such a different like there you get this like nice white sand. Here it's like muddy.
Right. Like what am I stepping on? Seaweed or
Yeah.
something else?
And we're still so lucky like to be close to the ocean. And all things considered, it's like clean enough. But yeah,
Right, right.
it's
It could
it's
be
just it's
worse. You could
different.
be like in the mainland of the United States and like
Yeah,
get no beach.
exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
we take what we can get.
Yeah.
My last question, like surfing related. So I did not know in the surfer world there's like surfer slang.
Mhm.
Can you teach the listeners and I a couple terms?
Yeah, sure. We say such dumb stuff. The word I use most, it's not even necessarily a surfing term. I say dude all the time, and I think that's like a cliche surfing term.
Okay, yeah, we
But I
hear
think
that a
so many
lot.
people use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other ones, I mean, gnarly. You say frothing. That
Okay.
sort of stuff just means, oh, that's sick.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and these aren't words, I say all the time. It's stuff
Okay.
that we'll sort of say like jokingly.
It's
But there's a
not
lot
like
of
like you're not using it all the time, like every.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's more so stuff that if me and my friend are joking around, we'll be like, "Oh, we're frothing right now," or something like that. I
Okay.
use it, I use it more ironically, I guess. Um, but the big word that I feel like everyone needs to know if you're going to surf, and it's gonna sound dumb, is YEWU. And basically,
Okay.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna sound dumb. When you're in the water and someone catches a wave, you're like, oh, that's insane. You go, you, and you just make that noise. And it's so stupid,
That's so
but for so
interesting.
it just slips out. It's like it just happens. It's like the
Okay.
soul call
Okay.
of surfing, basically.
It's like I'm trying to think of like what other people in other sports do, but okay.
I don't
Okay.
know, man.
I
It's
don't think I
wild,
don't
but
think they
we
have calls,
no,
but
we
that's
we
cool.
say it though.
Do you maybe I wonder if it's I wonder if it goes back to that cultural thing. I wonder
It
if it goes
might.
back to yeah, like Hawaii, Polynesia.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even know where it originates. It's just something. It's always cool because sometimes when a really big wave comes in and you take off on it, you have the whole lineup going you like calling out to you,
It's
and
like
then
a whole like
90%.
chant.
Yeah, and then 90% of the time when that happens, I'll just fall in front of everybody. But you just get back up and pretend it didn't happen.
No, that's funny. That's funny. No, but yeah, I think no, that's so cool. I think in Hawaii you'll probably learn like a whole different way of surfing if you ever get the chance to like go.
I would
Hopefully you
love to.
do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So now for some TCP rapid fire questions. You don't have to answer it quickly. I just call it that. You could take
Okay.
your time.
All right.
um, but my first one, what makes you laugh the most?
I'm a simple man. Loud noises, toilet jokes, and the impractical jokers on True TV.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Three things you're grateful for.
Friends, family sounds super cliche, but it's obviously I think the most important thing to anybody.
No,
And
everyone
then
says that. Yeah, I love that.
yeah, just friends and family, and then just the situation I'm in, being able to go to a great school and being able to surf when I can, being in the area we're in. I love Long Island,
I like that.
so
What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self. Trying to think of how to phrase it. I would just say to take, I guess, one step at a time. Um, I think a lot of times when I was younger, I mean, I still do this now. You just get this hesitancy to do things. Um, and then you sort of get to a point in life when you're older where you can't have that hesitancy because you have to, get things done. You have to
Right.
apply to the internship. You have to join this club. You have to do all these things to progress. And I wish I sort of had that mindset earlier on. So I would probably just tell my younger self to just go for things and don't think twice about it.
Yeah. I think where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I think there's like a realistic answer that I could give, and I'm not going to give that answer. I'm going to give the optimistic answer.
Okay.
Being a film and television student, I really want to work in studio spaces. As you know, I would love to work in either television or film. So I would
Right.
love to be working in some capacity on a television show, a feature film. And on top of that, I want to just be surfing. I want to surf as much as I can. I want to improve at it, and I want to improve the content that I put out on my channel.
Right. And the last TCP question, what would you name this current chapter of your life?
I actually thought about this when I read the question. I would say, again, gonna sound cliche. I give a lot of cliche answers.
No, it's cool.
I would say the beginning.
Okay.
I want this, the past happened. I love my past. I've had so many great memories, but this right now is the beginning to everything else that's gonna happen in my life. And
I think thank you, Dylan, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, I feel like I learned a lot. I hope the listeners learned a lot as well about like surfing, slang, your journey, and the cool things and also the dangers of surfing.
Yep.
So it was a really good conversation. I definitely got to go surfing with you one day.
For sure, we gotta make it happen.
Yes, I'm with it. I'm with it. And contrary to popular belief, there are many Black, Latino, Indigenous, and Asian surfers out there, both professional and amateur, who are killing it and breaking records. So we love to see it. You can follow Dylan on Instagram at Dylan_S_Black. And make sure you guys check out and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Be sure to leave a rating for the Cervantes podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the Cervantes podcast YouTube channel and click the notification bell up top so you're notified whenever I upload a new episode. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.